The MAAC tournament is just about here. I am in Atlantic City live right now in my hotel room to bring you this makeshift version of our space. I am Sam Federman with Fairfield Frank, wherever he is, with Hurwitz, with Jaden Daly, with Guy Falotico. How are you guys doing on MAAC tournament eve?
Well, Sam, aside from the technical problems, I guess we're in good shape for the shape we're in.
Ethan?
Yeah, I'm excited to make that 3.5 hour drive tomorrow.
Frank?
Listen, this is going to be the theme of today. I'm just excited to be here, right? I was not sure I was going to be here a couple days ago, so I'm excited to be here.
This is my week every week to get away from home and do something different with my life and gamble and do all the fun things that men do when they're by themselves. So I love this week. Oh, yeah, the basketball is always great, too. So I'm looking forward to getting down to AC. I'm heading out first thing in the morning.
We'll be joined by Joe Gallo, the head coach at MAAC, momentarily. Seems like he's having some technical problems right now. But we'll get him on in a moment. This morning, I dropped my 3 MAAC tournament features. One of them with featured an interview. Oh, we're live on Twitter now.
Go figure.
Wow. Awesome
I'm going to call.
So that worked. If you guys can retweet that. We're up on Twitter. Working on trying to get Coach Gallo in here. But just going to go over the schedule for this week's MAAC tournament. Obviously, the first games are the women's games tomorrow. The 8-9 game is the opener. That will be Manhattan and Canisius, 7:10, St. Peter's, Iona. And then the men's games tomorrow night are Ryder, Siena, and Sacred Heart, Fairfield. Frank, your Stags just getting in on the last day of the season. We'll discuss that for sure as well. Then the women's quarterfinals, number 1 Fairfield against whoever wins the 8-9, number 2 Quinnipiac against whoever wins the 7-10, and then on the men's side on Wednesday, number 1 Quinnipiac against whoever wins the 8-9, number 2 MAAC against whoever wins the 7-10. Once again, trying to get Coach Gallo in here as soon as he can. Ethan, you're muted, by the way, and Guy, you too, and Frank, you as well. Mm-hmm. Just make sure you guys know that. Thursday this year, there's since it's a 10-team tournament, not 11, the 3-6 is already set, and the 3-6 will actually be the nightcap instead of the early game on Thursday. 4-5 goes to the early slot. That'll be Mount Marist for the women, Siena MAAC 6 for the women, and then the men 4-5 Manhattan Iona, 3-6 Mount Marist. And then Friday, semifinals, Saturday, finals. I guess first thing we can talk about before we bring in Coach Gallo, MAAC tournament schedule, it's changing next year. What are our thoughts on moving back to Tuesday?
I think it's great. That means more weekend games. It should be, right? It should be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then get to Tuesday. I think it's a great move. I know a lot of people around the league that have been around were hoping this came sooner, right? We weren't happy about the move to competing with the Big East. We used to lose Jaden to some of those games, but I know he tries to make it to Atlantic City as much as he can. So now there's less conflict, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I finally get to do both again next year, so it's about time that the MAAC was able to make something work. We'll see what happens beyond next year when Atlantic City's contract runs out. That's another story for another time. But all things considered, I also love how the women's championship game is going to get its own stage on Monday. And the men will get the day off in between the semis and the championship Sunday and Tuesday. I actually like that format there. And I think it'll play to the advantage of some of the other guys.
Ethan, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, a lot of these schools have spring break the same week, so trying to change that up so you can get a number of, whether the kids want to drive from Connecticut or Massachusetts or New York down to Atlantic City is another story. But it opens up the door for more opportunities to get more kids in the door rather than just sticking it during school break for a lot of these kids.
All right, so we're about to be joined by MAAC head coach Joe Gallo. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're really excited for the tournament. I'm sure you guys are. You guys are awaiting the opponent. You'll get the winner of Sacred Heart and Fairfield. You'll get them on Wednesday night. What are these couple days in between the end of the season and the MAAC tournament like when you don't know your opponent yet you're getting ready to come down here?
Yeah, I mean we actually gave the guys 2 days off after the Marist game, and then really just getting back in the swing of things, keeping our cardio going. As you guys know, we play a unique style, so we've played. Once you're familiar with teams in your league, it's really a lot about just worrying about ourselves. Today we, without our team really knowing, we guarded a couple of Sacred Hearts actions that they've ran against us with a couple of Fairfield's actions as well, and kind of blended it together a bit. But really just kind of keeping the guys fresh-minded, keeping them loose, and just keeping that edge. I think the way we had that little dip where we lost those couple one-possession games, and then the Ryder game was kind of a blessing in disguise. We almost needed a little bit of a regroup and get back to our defensive identity. And I don't think we could have ended much better than we did with those 2 wins against Quinnipiac and Marist, and just bottling that up and hopefully carrying that on and bringing that to Atlantic City with us.
Joe, thanks for joining us on such short notice and braving the technical problems that we all had. My first question to you is this: being the first team to end the regular season, being the leader in the clubhouse, so to speak, after that Thursday game against Quinnipiac, do you feel that the extra couple days rest may give you a little bit more of an advantage, or does having a week off maybe come back to be more of a concern when you tip off Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think that the rest was good, especially, we had, our kid Armandus Plastauskas has been out. We were playing 9 guys, and that went down to 8. And then I've even shortened the bench a little bit more. We've had a kind of a little bit tighter rotation with the 7 guys. So, I think the rest is good, especially when you have a group that you trust. But you guys seen it enough. Sometimes you get in this tournament setting, and it's nice to get a win under your belt. It's why there's upsets. It's why sometimes a lower seed goes all the way to the final and wins the thing. So we're trying not to look too much into that, but it was nice just kind of sitting home and watching, and we're going to be the 2, are we going to be the 3, and watching that Marist Mount game without having to get myself all worked up for our own game. So it was nice to just sit on the couch and have a beer and watch some other MAAC teams go at it.
Sounds like the rest of us, Coach.
Hey, you got, and quickly, you guys, like this year has been awesome. I just think the coverage all you guys give. I love how fanatical you are about your own teams. I love the banter. It's been great just following all of you guys, and I love the way you root for your own teams. But also it seems like there's a lot of respect amongst each other, and it's just been a cool first year experience for me.
Awesome. No, we really do enjoy it. We love the banter. That's what keeps us going, Coach. So I got a question for you. So of course I hope to have Fairfield be playing you guys on Wednesday night, but I want to focus on Sacred Heart for a second. What kind of advantage do you think it brings for them, playing against you guys and your system, your defensive system, the last 5 years, right? And now this is the 6th season you guys have been Division I. What kind of advantage do you think it brings them, understanding the way in which you work your defense? Because I do think there's been quite of an adjustment as MAAC teams are playing you. And obviously, I don't have to say much more than 1 point win on your side and 1 point win on their side, right? So you can tell how close those teams are and familiar you guys are. So what kind of advantage do you think it plays?
Yeah, I think it definitely does give an advantage. This will be, I don't know, so 6th year. We probably played Sacred Heart 11, 12 times now. And especially, I think we're a tough team on a 18-hour prep or whatever it's going to be. But Coach Latina and his assistants, they could probably do a MAAC prep in their sleep now after 12, 13 games. So in such a short turnaround, I definitely feel like it does, favor them if they are to move on because, they've played us a bunch. They keep it simple against us, but it's very effective. And I agree with you. It's a system that takes a little, you need to get into a rhythm, and I think they've seen it enough where they have a simple game plan and they attack us pretty well.
Coach, almost building on that question a little bit in terms of being familiar with teams being familiar with what you're doing and what your familiarity with what they do. So now you're going to see some teams a third time. Do you tweak your defense at all? Or do you just kind of trust in your process and just go?
Yeah, we trust it. I mean, we tweak it to, if there was something that surprised us in game 2 that we think we might see in game 3, we'll adjust to it in that way. I think, we've played on this side. So Fairfield twice, Sacred Heart twice. I kind of throw that second Fairfield game away. I think that you have one game a year on each side where just nothing can go wrong, and that was our Fairfield first half. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in that game. But we adjust. It's a zone, but it takes on a lot of different shapes, a lot of different forms. Sometimes it looks like man, then it goes back to zone based on what the opponent's doing. So I think the more data and the more we could see teams, the way they try to attack us, it does play into our hands a little bit. But there's always new stuff. I think. Usually in the first 4 minutes of the game, we'll see something that we didn't prepare for because people have been preparing for us, and then we got to adjust to it. So it's constantly evolving. It's not just standing in 5 spots and hoping you miss.
Coach, thanks for joining us. Sort of building off these themes of questions about prepping for a team that you don't know the opponent yet. What's sort of the film study like going into this game? How do you sort of, is it just watching a lot of you guys? Is it watching just Sacred Heart and Fairfield? How do you sort of narrow it down when you guys are watching film?
Yeah, I mean, we broke it up by assistants. We actually have we have a guy on each of the maybe. I said I can't look ahead to Mount or Marist, but somebody needs to, and it can't be me. So we've broken it down. Each assistant has a different team that we may play. And then we met yesterday, and I said, let's talk about how each of these teams guarded us, and let's talk about how each of these teams attacked us. And let's just, in our hour and 15 minutes on the court today, let's just give our team a sample size of both these teams without even really talking about personnel or anything like that. So we have a really old, mature group. I think once we figure out who we're playing, it's 1 or 2 film sessions. We'll have our walkthrough there, and we'll be ready to go. But we are kind of splitting it right now and, mostly just focusing on ourselves.
So I know this space is about the MAAC preview, but like I mentioned before, you guys spent the last 5 seasons in the NEC, and there's a big game tomorrow night in New Britain, Connecticut. I'm curious your take on the game, and who do you think is going to pull out on top in that game?
Is it Central St. Francis?
Yep.
I think you got to go with the home team. Although I watched like the last 5-6 minutes of the St. Francis game the other day, and it looks like Coach Kreml has those guys playing really well. But that's a tough atmosphere when they pack that place, and they had a great year. So I think they would have the favor, but both great coaches, both awesome guys. So it'd be hard for me to really pick who I want to win, but I'll probably just go with what Vegas says and go with Central.
Sounds good.
Anyone else got anything to add for Coach?
Yeah, Joe, in light of the all-conference honorees being revealed earlier today, you picked up a first-teamer in Bud Clark and Brian Etumnu winning Defensive Player of the Year. I want to focus on Brian just a little bit here. We talked over the summer about how his skill set might translate to the league. Are you surprised by how he's adapted and how he's evolved over the course of the year? And what can you say about his progression on the defensive end that led him to winning this award?
Yeah, not really. You could see it coming a little bit in the non-conference. There's a little bit too much size at times. Like he's when you're playing 6 bye games like we did, it's almost the matchups with the 7-footer on Butler or 6'10", 260 pounds on Rutgers. You don't fully gauge what it's going to look like when you actually play people your size. But, he had a run of, I kind of challenged him. He had, maybe 6 blocks through 14 games or something like that. And I kind of pulled up his last year to this year, and I thought he was not active enough to start the year. And he answered the bell and just started blocking shots left and right. I mean, he's got multiple games of 5 blocks or more. We put a lot on him because we're so extended, and we take away the 3 and we allow people to attack him one-on-one. And, for us, those are only 2 points, so we're okay with them. But he does a really good job. I mean, he sees the most volume of any of our guys going his way. He's been a lot smarter, staying out of foul trouble. And, it's been great to see. He's 6'7", but he's got a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan, and he's very active back there. And, I think, kind of like some of the other awards, I guess if you're going to go with the best defensive player on the best defensive team, you had to go with him.
Coach, I wanted to ask about how important roster retention is. We saw a lot of MAAC teams have to pretty much start from scratch. I know Iona did. Quite a few others as well. I don't think it's a coincidence that the teams that finished in the top are the ones that brought the most players back.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that was a big priority for you coming up as this season gets closer to the end as well.
Yeah, and it's, as you guys know, it's really hard. There's a lot of options out there now. There's money being thrown around, some real, some not, that you're fighting. But I agree, and I think, the biggest thing it allowed us to do, us and Marist and Quinnipiac, is we jumped out to great starts. Probably because of the retention. We probably, we talk to our team every year about, like, every season is a big giant race to maturity and how fast it takes us to mature. And I think when you have those returners like the top 3 teams had, we probably all matured a little bit faster than the other teams. But then if you look down the stretch here, they're all coming, like Iona, 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5, including that game that, we stole there, that they really deserve to win. Mount has won 4 out of 5, 8 out of 11. Manhattan's won 4 in a row. So, it maybe took these teams a little bit longer to peak at that maturity level. Now I'm happy the way we kind of got it back these last couple games, but I think that's what's going to make for an awesome tournament. The teams that had that retention were ready to go a little bit earlier, and then, everyone else kind of came along late. And I think everybody's, you could shake it up in a bag and throw it out and to figure out who's going to win this thing.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck this week in Atlantic City. We'll see you in a couple days.
All right, guys, take care. We'll see you out there.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck this week.
See you. Thank you.
All right, so unfortunately, the Twitter stream went down again. So if you're watching us now, you're either watching us on YouTube or on Twitch. I've tweeted the links. Guys retweeted it. I'm waiting for the other 3 of you to to retweet it. But we kind of want to quickly go through each of the first round. Can you guys hear me?
Now
You're
we
back.
can.
You're back. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. We're not. We don't know quite as much about the women's side as we do about the men's side, so we're kind of gonna. We're not going to talk as much about the women, but we'll go to the men's side. And tomorrow's games start with Siena and Ryder. Anybody have any initial thoughts on the Bronx and the Saints?
I'll lead off here. I'm interested to see how Ryder can parlay it this year. We always talk about how Ryder is the de facto home team in Atlantic City, and whether or not it can get a home court advantage and a decent crowd advantage. And the way that Kevin Badgett's team finished the season is conducive to that. But I'm concerned with how the backcourt handles Siena. I finally got to see the Saints for the first time on Saturday, and even in the loss to Manhattan, I was impressed with Justice Schultz and Major Freeman and how they were able to control the game. I think that'll be an advantage. My concern for Siena is going to be what happens inside if Peter Carey and or Brendan Coyle get into foul trouble against Tariq Ingram. It's going to be a close game. I think it goes 2 or 3 possessions, but I have Siena winning.
Yeah, I remember watching this game. They only played once this year. It was February 8th. I had I had a Syracuse game that day, so I didn't watch all of it. But I didn't feel like Ryder got the win. It didn't feel like Ryder was like tremendous in that game, and it didn't feel like Siena was either. I think that was like a toss-up type game. Ryder won at the buzzer. Tank Byard. I just don't know like how much I can trust Siena at all this year.
Yeah.
Considering how inconsistent they've been. They have not strung together more than 2 wins in a row since the first 3 games of the season. Every time I've thought they've been turning a corner, they've kind of taken a step back. I think Jerry McNamara, as a first-year head coach, is going through a lot of the things the first-year head coaches go through. And he's had some really good moments. He's had some really rough moments. I think Siena, just watching them on their best day is better than Ryder on its best day. And I also think they're probably better on their worst day than Ryder is on Ryder's worst day. But that kind of Ryder's a little bit more close the gap type versus Siena, where you don't where I don't really know what Siena team I'm going to get on a given day.
And this is an interesting one because they've only played each other once, right? So there's not a back-to-back, hey, it's double home games. So this is the first time that we've had that, right? So that's going to be interesting too, is like you usually have the time to adjust between the 2 games and you get the third one to really know who's who and what's what, right? So they didn't have that. I think Siena's really missing Jackson, right? And that's been a while, but I think he was really a part of the heart and soul. I don't think they've played the same way without him. It's really just Schultz getting to the rim and scoring, as of I've watched recently, and Doty's been really well. But Ryder, if they're going to win this game, they need to rebound the ball and they need to shoot the 3 well, and that's Weeks category, right? So if they're going to win, that's their recipe to me. I was looking back at their Merrimack win 3 games ago on this 3-game win streak, which was the first one, and they're 50% from 3, and they out-rebounded Merrimack by 10 boards. So to me, that was probably their best game of the season, and that's probably the recipe of how you kind of can beat a Siena team.
Yeah, the Siena team, and Sam, you touched on it. The inconsistencies have been there all year. There have been games where you put up 53, 48 points. And then there was a game, granted, it was a Manhattan game that went to double OT, but they put up 103. You put up 94. You put up 93. So you don't really know what you're getting. Health has played a factor into that. I think that we'll see, depending on how the scouting report goes and if that changes depending on 1 game or 2. I don't think Siena has strung together, whether it's the wins or just consistent play, strung together enough to at least warrant some consideration to have a chance in the next round, even if they were to be Ryder.
Guy?
Yeah, the biggest problem I have with Siena, other than what's already been covered, is they're also not great down the stretches of games. They've really kind of imploded a few times. So if that game is tight, I actually give Ryder quite a big edge.
Yeah, Ryder. They had some tough luck losses. The Fairfield loss on the Peyton Smith tip-in, the Manhattan loss they had, and the
Winston for the 3, right? Yeah,
Winston from way downtown, and the Merrimack loss where they with Bud Clark hitting a shot with 8 seconds left.
But they also got one back in the last seconds against Niagara Flash
and against Siena, as I said. So they've been through a lot of these tight games, and I don't think like they have. I think Ryder's actually been a very good team in these types of late game situations. I think I don't remember what game it was for Ryder that I'm thinking about, but like there was a game where it felt like they just wouldn't go away, and there was the Niagara game away back in January where Tank Byard took over the game in the last couple of minutes. Like you don't expect Tank Byard to be a guy that's going to be able to do that. They've been able to hold on in some of these close games, and I've been impressed, more impressed with Ryder in these close game scenarios than with and the St. Peter's away game. They should have. There was either a phantom foul or a non-foul that should have been a foul at the end of it. Ruben Rodriguez was had the ball down the court. I don't remember what happened there, but it was something crazy. So yeah, I think that a lot of their late game losses haven't necessarily been poor execution, more so than they've just been the other team beating them. Meanwhile, they've been in a lot of these close games and they've executed decently well for the most part. I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I don't know what's going to happen in any of these games.
Well, MTS already said anything can happen on any given night.
Moving on, Frank, I'm going to give you the lead here.
Yeah.
Talk about the Stags and the Pios. Sacred Heart had never beaten Fairfield before this season.
Yep.
Fairfield is 0-2 against the Pioneers this season. For me, Sacred Heart just feels like a team that can just come out like an inferno in the first half, and the game could be over at halftime.
Yep.
But I don't know. Like Fairfield has a bunch of interesting storylines going with them. The way Prophet Johnson has been playing recently. If they can get Dion Perry back to where he was in the middle of the year, that would be really big. But Braden Sparks has stepped up. Peyton Smith's had some big moments. So I wouldn't count out the Stags, even though I think Sacred Heart has the ability to blow them out.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the biggest issue, I think, for Fairfield. So Fairfield has 14 double-digit losses this year. There's only one team in the history of Fairfield, I looked it up, that has more double-digit losses than Fairfield this year. So they're in rare territory. But to that original point you said, Sam, Sacred Heart feels like a team that gets ahead and never looks back, and Fairfield is a team that doesn't come back from those big ones. And
did just blow a 15-point lead at Iona.
Yes. You're right. And on the other side of that too, I guess, contradicting myself, is Fairfield was down to Siena by 17 and they tied it up and they could have won that game. But regardless, I don't think they're really equipped for that. I think what they need, Fairfield needs to do to win this game, is they need to rebound the ball. So in the last 10 games, they've been out rebounded in 9 of those, and by a good margin in most. The only one exception was the Ryder game when they blew Ryder out. So I think they need to do a better job of rebounding the ball against Sacred Heart, because in their 2 matchups, they were also out rebounded. And they need to protect the 3. Sacred Heart, in the blowout loss to Sacred Heart at Sacred Heart, they were shooting 3 so well. But even in that loss at Fairfield, they made some very timely threes. And the keys are the 2 of the guys you mentioned a second ago for Fairfield is, Prophet Johnson and Braden Sparks. Those 2 guys have been the motor. If they can, combine for the last game they combined for over 40, but if they can combine for 35 or 40 or whatever it is the number is, that's going to be a good start here, and they need their front court to step up and rebound the ball. But to the Sacred Heart side of things, they have unbelievable young guards, really talented. They have great chemistry, and they really got under Fairfield in the 2 matchups. So Fairfield's going to need to bring some intensity if they're going to keep up with Sacred Heart in this game.
I have a couple of things I can add on that. This is to support Fairfield. I mean, obviously, I agree. That
don't patronize me.
No. I agree that, with all the reasons we gave for why Sacred Heart's in a great spot here, but I'll give you two countermeasures here. Number one, I wonder if Quinnipiac did Fairfield a little bit of a favor here by laying down the other day. It gives Fairfield a chance to work on some stuff, got a little better, maybe a bit more confident than they would be if they had lost by, 12 at home to wrap up the season. So that's one. And the other thing is, there's not such a wide gap between Sacred Heart and Fairfield, so that beating somebody 3 times in 3 tries doesn't come into play, at least a little bit. I would be surprised if Fairfield got blown out. I don't know if they'll win the game, but I wouldn't be shocked if they're in this.
Same. Yep.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think Sacred Heart wins. I do think the offense is going to be too much for Fairfield to overcome, but it wouldn't shock me if it was a 4 or 5 point game at the U4.
Frank, I got a question for you. Obviously, the win mattered for Fairfield, didn't matter for Quinnipiac, and they played all their reserves the whole time. What do you think that win does for a team when they want to win, but in the back of the mind they know that, hey, you were playing the backups? Like, does that have any psyche going into a game that now you're not going to be playing the backups?
Yeah. I don't think you bring the backup side into it when you're actually thinking about wins and losses. Like when you go back and you look at the schedule and you say, hey, Fairfield beat Quinnipiac, no one's going to say, oh, well, that was the backups. Well, maybe like 30
No,
days.
people are definitely going to say that.
No, in 2 years from now, who's going to remember that?
The
That's what
St.
I'm
Peter's
saying.
probably. St. Peter's
Probably St. Peter's, but I'm saying like
St.
overall,
Peter's fans have been absolutely like killing the mentions on Twitter over the last couple of days.
they have
To
fans.
be clear, I don't mind. Go ahead, use my mentions as a war zone.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we see. I don't agree with it personally. I'm just going to be honest with you. I would rather win the game on my own merits than beat the backups. But I think as a team and as a coach, you need to motivate in a different way, which is you won the game. You still had to go out there and put your shoes on and win that game, and they did. I'm always in favor of winning the last game of the season than losing, right? Regardless of the situation, regardless, people get injured and you still beat teams, right? And you can say, well, we were at full strength. Well, that's not our fault, right? Quinnipiac locked it up and they wanted to like not get guys hurt. It's not our fault, right? That was their choice. So I don't know. I don't think that they the players, coaches read into it as much as that. I think there's more momentum behind it. Sure. Do you feel as good about yourself? No, but I don't think it's a bad thing to win the last game of the season going into the tournament.
That's a good point.
Maybe a miss on our part to not ask Coach Gallo about that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like the crazy thing is this happens all the time in the NFL. And
Yes.
we're getting closer to pay for play, or we are pay for play, right? So we're getting closer and closer to what the NFL is, right? Soon we might know salary caps. We might know what people are making in NIL. Like this might be fully transparent in a couple of years. So we might be a form of that, right? So I don't know. I don't love it personally, but it is the world we live in.
All right, let's move on. Ethan's going to be out of here quickly. So I want to talk about Quinnipiac. Ethan, I'm sure you read the story I wrote today on Savion Lewis. You guys at the Chronicle wrote something a little similar last year with Savion and Matt Belanc. Now there is no more Matt Belanc in the MAAC, at least. What are kind of your initial thoughts going into this tournament on Quinnipiac? What do they need to do to get the job done?
I think it's their tournament to lose. I think it was their tournament to lose last year. I think that they go in, Merrimack's not far behind, but I think that they go in and they should believe themselves to be the favorite. You have the player of the year, you have the coach of the year for the second straight year. I just think that the two things that have hurt them all year is the 3-point shooting and the turnovers. And I mean, those will hurt every team at some point during the course of the year, but their 3-point shooting has been, historically bad, like bottom 20 in the country consistently. There are games where they'll turn the ball over 14, 15 times, 10 of those coming in the first half. So it puts them in a hole where they struggle to get out of. That's what I look at as sort of the barometer to success is just, can you make some threes and can you turn the ball over less than you have? I think if you do that, obviously it's March, you're going to screw up at some point. There's going to be some team in there that falters, but I think that Quinnipiac has the roster and I think they have the ability to win it all. It's just, can they not get cold from deep?
Anyone else got anything to add on Quinnipiac?
I have a question for you, Ethan. Who would you rather face?
In terms of Ryder and Siena?
Correct. Yep.
I have Ryder winning it. I think I would rather face Siena just because I feel like Siena, they came back and beat Quinnipiac on their home court a few months ago. I just think Siena isn't – and their first half against Quinnipiac wasn't all that special, and I think it took a pretty horrific second half by Quinnipiac for Siena to really get back into it. I think Siena just hasn't been consistent enough to – play a full 40, at least not against Quinnipiac, because in their first game, they were down 30-2. So there have just been a complete swappings of how the first and second half have gone against Siena. I think ideally that's the team you want to face. I think Ryder is going to win it, but from a Quinnipiac angle, I think Siena gives you the better chance to move on.
I would say the same thing. I think Quinnipiac wins comfortably either way, but if I'm Tom Pecora, I'd probably rather face Siena.
I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not getting the Canisius Mount Invitational in the 8-9 game.
That's funny.
I mean, this Quinnipiac team, the best team on the glass in this conference. They are incredibly athletic defensively. They're in passing lanes. They are protecting the rim. They're hard to score on. But I've seen stretches where they are sloppy, as Ethan mentioned. I was at the game against Marist when they went like 8 minutes without a bucket, like twice in that game, basically. They need, and like if that happens in a stretch of a game, I think they can maybe survive that with how good they are defensively against a Siena or a Ryder. I don't know if they can survive that on Friday or Saturday.
No, I agree with that. And there are times where, they'll go for 4 or 5 minutes without a bucket or a field goal. And at that point, you had built up a good enough lead where obviously you don't want it to happen, but you could afford that in that situation. I think at this point, like it's winter time home.
There's the lead.
You can't afford to just go 5 minutes without a bucket. You can't afford to go 7 minutes of just letting Savion dribble the ball at the top and have everyone just stand, which has happened a lot recently, where they just sort of stay stagnant and there's not much moving. It's gotten better, but there were times where, and this sort of led into your turn of the year where Savion really struggled. It was just the offense just did not look cohesive. It was very clunky. I just think that for Quinnipiac to win, it's not about them winning. It's about them not playing bad basketball, because I think on paper they should win. They should at least make it to Saturday. I think, can they just avoid those bad stretches or those times where you're shooting 1 for 11 from deep to open up the game?
That's a really good point. I totally agree with that. It's them beating themselves so they don't get to Saturday.
And I feel like the Iona Manhattan winner is going to beat Quinnipiac either way on Friday. I don't like the way the bracket played out for the Bobcats at all. I think Iona is due for one. They've played a lot better than they have since the last time they played the Bobcats. And Manhattan's the hottest team in the league right now, winners of 7 of its last 9. The thing that concerns me with Manhattan is the short rotation and whether or not that can hold up for three games in 3 days.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make a huge case for Iona to be any kind of a lock over Quinnipiac or anything like that. They're barely I'm worried about Manhattan to begin with. But the 2 Quinnipiac Iona games were games that Iona could have won both of them and didn't. Iona is closing better than they were during both of those stretches. So
they've figured out Jai is the closer.
Yeah. And he made big shots. So but they've also learned how to get stops down the stretch, and they could not do that before either. And again, Quinnipiac knows that as well as anybody. Quinnipiac made plays and Iona didn't in the 2 meetings. And that's the one thing that still worries me about a matchup with Quinnipiac, is that I think, when you're in a tight game, the best players on the floor are the ones that make the plays. And in almost all cases in this tournament, it would be Quinnipiac. That said, there's a reason why 1 seeds have a tremendous history of losing in this tournament. So, this is what makes it fun. I mean, on paper, Quinnipiac should advance, but as the cliche goes, about where the games are played, not on paper.
Yeah. I got one more thing that I'm going to head out, but I guess 2 things. But this team, since first talking to them in October, you get some teams where they're just like, we're going to forget the past. Like there is still some scars from the St. Peter's game, and whether they want to fully admit it or not, I think it's something that
Savion was straight up with me.
There is someone where, I talked to Doug Young preseason and we were like, what games are you looking forward to? He goes, St. Peter's. Answered before you could even get the question out of your mouth. And I think there are some scars from that game, because last year's team was that close. That team was, 0.1 second away from potentially advancing. And that was the team that really felt like they were going to do it. I think there is some scars from that. And I think that they know inside that room that this is sort of the last dance for them. Is Savion's, after 7 years, is not going to be there. Falotico, whether he wants to either transfer with his JUCO eligibility or not, he's unlikely he's going to be there. Mara Monroe is probably going to get a bag among bags in the transfer portal. So I think that this is sort of it for this sort of core group. And I think that they're well aware of that. I think that's going to play a part in it. Then you also get their Amari Monroe, Politano, and Savion Lewis that are going to have almost a week off. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think that Savion's been banged up all year, and Amari's dealt with a back recently. So to get them, I guess, fully healthy is ideal for them.
Sorry, I'm just watching the SoCon final. It's an electric game. Oh my God, Robert Morris for the lead. I'm watching the Horizon League semi and I got all 3 games on there.
Nice.
Sicko.
As you should.
Sicko.
Anyway, to Manhattan, thank you, Ethan. I know you got
I'm
to
head out.
but we got
I'll
to
see everybody in AC.
See you in AC.
We got to talk Manhattan Iona. I'm going to throw to Guy quickly because we don't have a ton of time left. Guy, can you kind of talk a little bit about Manhattan Iona? What you're looking at from this game? What does Iona need to do to win? What does Manhattan need to do to win?
Well, the first meeting was just a bloodbath. I mean, the Jaspers came out more energy. Iona was flat, and Manhattan took full advantage. The second meeting kind of started that way, and then Manhattan got their legs under them. I think even now, I mean, and the odds say this, the Ken Palm says this, Manhattan's probably a little bit better than Iona. But Iona is doing all the right things too. And I think this is one of those games where it feels like either Manhattan's going to pull away a bit and win by like 12, or Iona is going to win a close game. But I mean, what does Iona have to do? They have to just, they had a plan to slow down Sonora, and it worked the second time around. And I'm sure they'll do something similar. But offensively, Iona needs to have more than Day and Jai to be effective. They need the good Mundi to show up, and he's been in and out. So the good Mundi in a game like this would have to be there. Yeah, I mean, Iona needs a lot to go right to win this game, I think. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, you can pretty much flip a coin in my mind.
Apropos of nothing, before I go here, if these 2 title game results hold up, with Wofford holding the lead on Furman and Oakland up 1 on Robert Morris,
That's the semi.
Okay, yeah. If Robert Morris gets knocked out, let's just say, there's a good chance that the MAAC winner might escape Dayton and get on the 16 line to play a 1.
I've been watching that too. It's interesting. Yeah, we're getting lucky over here.
Because the Patriot winner will most likely
Well,
go
no,
to Dayton.
we've got a whole bunch of we've a lot like High Point winning, Drake winning. I mean, obviously Bradley would not have been a 16, but like a lot of the teams that have been winning so far have been the number 1 seeds.
Omaha and SIU, we're going to be on that bubble. SWAC winner will be a lock for
Omaha
Dayton.
has gone up tremendously in the metrics recently.
Where are they, Sam? Where are they roughly right now?
I think they're like in the 160 range. They were at like
way, yeah, they're way ahead.
They were at like 205 when I earlier in the year. Let me make sure it was 160 and not like 190.
Well,
157.
I know this is not
They're way ahead. They're way ahead.
MAAC, but how about UDEL, the number 12 team, making it to the finals? It gives me hope as a Fairfield fan. That's all I have to say.
Did not surprise me. Towson always falls short.
Every year, there's a couple coaches that coach their way off the hot seat in March.
Hey, it's a parting gift from UDEL. If they win it all, it's kind of crazy.
You thought Inglesby was on the hot seat?
Do you hear that, Sam?
There were some rumors.
Interesting.
There were some rumors.
Let's get back on topic here. Iona needs to do what it did at the Heinz Center a couple weeks ago. Manhattan just needs to play its game, not shoot too many threes, and let's just talk about how Swish Gilliard not getting all conference was probably the biggest oversight out of all the awards. I feel like he should have been at least a 3rd team, or I had him on my 2nd team. But Manhattan, with its versatility, can beat you on any given night. I think they beat Iona. I think they beat Quinnipiac. I have them in the title game, and I have Mount beating Marist. Also, I feel like Marist peaked too soon, and I'm not sure how much can be salvaged.
I know we're fast.
Yeah, I want to talk next about Mount Marist. I was talking to John Dunn and Jackson Price, and like Price was like, maybe like he was like, hey, maybe it feels like we've kind of forgotten like what got us there a little bit. They got away from their identity. They were losing. And I asked Dunn, and like I kind of prefaced the question with like, tell me if I'm wrong here. You've been doing this a while, and I was like, when you're winning like that, and then you lose, no matter what it is, and you lose one, you lose two. It's just really, really hard to get the magic that you had back. And he's like, yeah, like when you win close games, you're confident. When you don't, you're not confident. And I think Mount, when Mount played Marist in December, I thought Mount was just as good. They could have won that game if it was played. If that game was played 100 times, Mount wins 49, Marist wins 51, and then Mount won at home on Sunday. I think it's a really tough spot for Marist, but again, Donnie Lind he's done a great job. If I had a vote for MAAC Coach of the Year, it would be Donnie Lind. He's never been a head coach in a conference tournament game. John Dunn's been in plenty of those. I'm interested to see that dynamic. There's a lot of dynamic in this tournament that I'm interested to see.
Sorry, Sam. I was going to say, like, my heart of hearts wants to pick Mount because I do think they're a talented team and I like Lynn, but I really am leaning Marist. Marist was in a really tough spot going from what they played on Friday or Thursday, right? So they're at Quinnipiac Thursday. Or no, sorry. They took the Mount drive in one day, right? That's what I was about to get to. Yeah. They played at home versus Merrimack and then drove to Mount and lost by 10 to Mount. Like I'm going to attribute that to travel. Like I think that's one of the worst trips. Mount without Terrell Ard has looked pretty tough at times, and he's out for the season. I think Pacheco and Hobbs can still keep him in the game. And they're, front court with Cordelia and such, but and Adebayo. But I really do like Marist bouncing back. Now, I don't know. I don't think they're going to fare past that round. I think honestly, Merrimack's the team to beat in the bottom of the bracket, and I think they're going to make it to the finals. And I have them as my champion personally, but I don't see how Mount can beat them in a neutral without Ard, in my personal opinion. And it's funny, Jaden, I actually do have Manhattan in the final as well.
Yeah, I have a Merrimack over Manhattan title game. It's going to be close. It'll probably be 57-53, but I have Joe Gallo finally getting
Hey,
it.
anything's better than 48-44 Loyola over Fairfield in 2012.
Oh, I remember that one. Bob Houston could barely talk.
Yep.
I don't ever pick MAAC games. Not even when I do my my slate maps, I white out my picks and I just do them for the sake of it. I don't put any thought into them. But I do have to make a MAAC pick for the Jerome, and I picked Merrimack.
Nice. Yeah, I did too. I did the Jerome this year.
I didn't put a ton of thought into that. It was just kind of like that's where I ended up.
It's hard to argue that they don't have the easier side of the bracket, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Iona and Manhattan are a little more dangerous right now than Mountain.
If it was Quinnipiac, Iona, or Manhattan in the finals, I think we would all be like, that makes sense. I just feel like Merrimack's got a good road.
All right.
I took Merrimack to easier road, best guard, and best defense.
All right.
Yeah, defense is the open switch here, right? Like that's how I mentioned Coach Gallo. Like that defense is really hard, I feel like, to game plan against if you're not used to it.
Anyone else got anything to add before we go?
No, I'm good.
It's going to be fun. I mean, this is the best time of year, man. No doubt about it. We all know. I'm saying the obvious. I can't wait to get to AC.
Let's hope Fairfield makes it to Friday or Saturday. Then you guys might actually see me.
What'd you say?
I said, let's hope Fairfield makes it to Friday or Saturday. Then you guys might actually see me.
You wouldn't go for the women, right?
No, I'm not going to make it down for them. No. But while we're on that quick, Sam, I did want to bring this up earlier when you brought it up. I think that Quinnipiac beating Fairfield is going to fuel them, but it is an interesting tournament though, because last year no one had beaten them. So they were confident to just kind of wipe the floor. And obviously the title game was unbelievable and they almost lost. So I can't really say that term.
Came from behind, Nelly fouled out, and they still won an OT.
And they still won an OT, exactly. But it's going to be a great 1 versus 2 if they both make it. I think it's going to be
they're not losing, Frank. They're not losing. Don't worry about it. You're good.
Don't jinx me.
I think
you're good.
I think that
could. And by the way, we could.
By the way, I'm just saying this. Every time I talk to anybody who's around MAAC women's basketball, they've been telling me if we don't get a Fairfield Quinnipiac final, it would be a catastrophe.
And I agree. And also, we could get 2 bids.
No,
That's right.
No, they're in the
doubt it.
bracketology.
I promise you, it's not possible.
It was in bracketology. There's an outside shot. Now, I don't know how losing to Quinnipiac changes it. but-
Fairfield is, I think, Fairfield is like 40 spots higher in the metrics.
Well,
Quinnipiac-
Fairfield. So that they could get 2 spots if Fairfield loses in the final.
No, I don't think so.
Fairfield was like what 41 in the latest net or 40 something. So I don't know. Anyways, that's what I was told, and that's what I'm going to stand by. They're going to win outright, so we don't have to care about that.
Oh, we don't have to worry. I was going to say, just don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Yeah.
All right.
We're going to get a Fairfield Quinnipiac title game, but I'm going to be the one that ends the Fairfield Love Fest, and I'm going to say the Quinnipiac's going to win it.
Fearless.
Going with first ever MAAC freshman to win Player of the Year.
Yeah, that was
Gal Revive. And when I spoke to Trisha Fabry in October, she brought her up unsolicited and went on for a good 2 minutes about how her experience playing against club teams in Israel was going to be such a benefit to this Quinnipiac team, and we've seen it already.
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome. It's going to be a good
for
one.
this match. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna post this this video on Twitter so you guys can watch. I'm gonna post it on the podcast on my podcast feed as well. Guy, you can probably post it on your podcast feed as well.
Yep, sure.
And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you, and thank you to Coach Joe Gallo for joining us as well. We'll see you tomorrow in AC. We're 15 hours from the tip. I'm gonna go take a walk on the boardwalk because why not?
That's right.
That's awesome.
Go for it.
All right.
We'll have Ethan and Connor down there as well. Vinny will be there Friday and Saturday, and then I'm TBD.